it's all about dynamics for me, you know, and I'm obsessed with dynamics. I want to take it down to a whisper and then I want to somehow build it up into the biggest thing that we can build it into and then, you know, smash it back down to earth. You know, that's the fun part about music, playing guitar, all of that.
Planet Guitar is delighted today to talk with blues guitarist Samantha Fish. Welcome, Samantha.
Hello, how are you?
Yeah, really well. It's lovely to see you again. Last
You
time
too.
we spoke, you had just released Death Wish Blues. Um,
Yes.
could you tell us about the response to that and how it's affected your career?
Um, well, there was a great response to it. You know, it was the first time in a long time I'd done anything that collaborative. But I'm really grateful that I had such a wonderful musical partner in Jesse Dayton. I had a great time on that tour. I thought our show was, you know, really well paced. Like I really enjoyed performing that show. Um, and I thought the reception, you know, anytime you do something new outside of your norm, you know, people are shocked at first and then they kind of ease into it. But that was really special because we got to work with John Spencer, who's somebody I've admired for a very long time. Both Jesse and I were very proud of that album, and it got nominated for a Grammy. So I think like the reception at that point felt pretty dang good. You know what I mean? I was like, okay, I don't think it gets any better than, you know, to get acknowledged by the Grammys. And we knew that we had something special when we made it. I just don't think either of us could really fathom that it would get that kind of good response, you know?
Did it make a difference to your life? Like getting recognized in the street more or anything like that?
I don't know. It's not really like that's not really something I can quantify. You know, like I can't really say that because of that, this X, Y, and Z happened.
Yeah.
Um, you know, life, we went to the Grammys. That felt very cool to go and be a part of that. But you know, I don't know. We both are just so, Jesse and I are both really um, committed to our touring careers, you know, so it's like we kind of have our head down anyway. You know, you don't really notice so much. If there was a change, I don't think either of us would be aware enough to notice it because we're working on the next thing, you know. It's what you do. You're always hustling towards the next goal, the next art that you're going to put out. So
As you said, you made that album with John Spencer producing it. Your latest with Paper Doll, which I should say is released on April the 25th.
yes.
You reunited with Bobby Harlow, and I was wondering, what did that change bring you?
Well, you know, it's funny because when I spoke with my professional team about when are we going to make this record, they said, well, if we want to have a record out next year, probably, you know, there's all these timelines. I don't want to bore you with the details, but the the short story is I looked at the calendar and thought there's no way that I'm going to be able to make an album with this hellacious touring schedule I have going. Um, but truthfully, if you want to do something, you can do it. And Bobby was really, I had just reconnected with Bobby in March. He came to our show in St. Andrews Hall in Detroit. And he was, you know, it'd been a couple of years, I think, since he and I had really spoken to each other and, you know, different places in our lives. He's been doing things. And I asked him if he would want to collaborate and co-write some songs with me. And he said, sure. And it honestly, just the timing and the pacing of the record, it's sort of you got to like rely on the universe to bring people into your life at the right time. And Bobby was there when it was like, hey, we got to go make a record. And he was so um he has so much passion in his artistry, and he was the absolute right person to bring this record to life. He, you know, he and I shared a vision, and he's really truly like passionate about the music, and you know, he believes in it like 100%. You really need a producer who believes in you when you're in the studio. You know, he's absolutely like just a positive you know, point in there, and he's also like full of energy and ideas, and it's just great to work with him again. So as far as like where I was doing Chills and Fever with him and now, I think we're both worlds apart from those people that we were, and it's like coming together like in this, you know, we have history, but it was a whole new project.
You'd said, or I'd read somewhere that he takes you to dangerous places, and
Oh, every day Bobby, he likes to push you. And it's funny, you know, I think I need um I like working with somebody who stands firm in what they think sounds great and believes. And there were times where he and I would butt heads in the studio, like, no, I don't think this is the way it should go. And he'll fight you on an idea that he thinks, he'll fight you to the death on an idea that he believes in. And I don't know, I kind of need that sort of energy and spark in the studio. We're all fighting for the art, and he will push you to dangerous places to do things that you are uncomfortable with, but I think to the best results. And I felt the same about John Spencer too, working with him on the last Death Wish record. He pushed us in these different ways that, like, I think, anytime you work with a producer, the idea is to get out of your comfort zone. They are there to produce, results that you can be proud of. And sometimes the thing that you would naturally fall to because it feels comfortable, it's not. You need a little extra oomph to sell the idea, and he'll push you to that point. Bobby will.
On the wonderfully dreamy fortune teller, it starts this beautiful sort of laid back, incredible sound. It suddenly moves in a completely different direction.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if that was his influence on you, or was that you?
Well, I mean, it's funny enough, that song came together in the studio. Like I said, we were sort of between touring dates, like, have a couple days off going to the studio. And as the record was taking shape with the other songs that we were recording, I felt like there needed to be a song that sat in the, area of like where the fortune teller song sits. So Bobby and I started working on writing it. I wanted to pay homage to, a big inspiration for me, North Mississippi blues, Junior Kimbrough and Arl Burnside. And together we kind of created this. If you play it by yourself with an acoustic guitar, it could kind of live in that world. But when you put the band on it and all the, when the energy took over that song and took it in a different direction, I mean, that's just one that Bobby and I wrote together. And I wanted it to have this shift, this tempo shift, this movement to a faster, part B, I suppose, but I think that song came together in such a unique way. We were both like pretty excited about that one.
I was surprised to read you say that it's taken years for me to finally find my voice in the studio.
Oh, yeah.
Why is it more difficult in the studio, and what do you feel has changed?
Um, I think singers can relate to this. Anytime you go, so they're singing on stage to an audience, you have a microphone, and something just sort of happened. It took years to get comfortable on the stage too, but I do a lot more of that than I do going to the studio. Um, when you go into the studio, everything is really close. Like you can hear every breath, every pop up. You got these massive headphones on, and everything just kind of like it's a little bit. I'd say it's a little overwhelming your first time in there because it is a different experience to sing live in the studio. You get in your head and you start holding yourself weird, and things get tight, anxiety. It took me a while to figure out how to comfortably sing in a studio, and you just learn little tricks, here and there that help. But yeah, it took me a while. I feel like I'd hear myself on records and I'm like, how is it that I can get on stage and sing this way, but when I go into a studio, it's like that's gone. And you have this different set of tools to work with. You just have to figure out how to bridge the gap and get over what you're hearing and do the thing that you can do.
Your first single release is Sweet Southern Sounds, which has a sort of
Mhm.
swampy, laid-back guitar to it, and then suddenly explodes into a blistering 90-second guitar solo, which could be said to be angry. I don't know. What inspired that song development?
Well, I wrote that song with Anders Osborne. We co-wrote that last summer, and we didn't write the outro, but we wrote the meat of the song. The lyrics and the general feeling of it. Again, I feel like that one sort of channels my North Mississippi heroes, in the style of the guitar, but the ending felt like it needed this push, something like that would make your foot want to hit the accelerator while you were driving, just some kind of exciting shift. And it was Bobby's idea to just subtly speed up as we went. So, and I have a great band. This is actually the first time that my road band has performed on a record with me, and they did a great job. And, it's not easy to do that kind of a tempo shift. And he does it in such a sublime way it'd be easy to go to the other end of the spectrum, and then it's kind of like cheesy almost if you go too fast, but he just did it in such a, like, almost a classy way. You just
Ah.
feel this energy shift upward. And I don't know, I mean, that's going to be one of those songs that, like, live we can really take people places, and we've been talking about that, that energy and how to, like, really harness it. But there's just absolutely this live feeling and energy to this record.
Which guitar did you play that solo on?
I have no idea. I have no idea, man. That part, I should have been taking pictures of gear with every solo, you know what I mean? But my mind just doesn't work like in that way. Like, I should be documenting exactly what I'm using for every guitar solo. It's very possible that I used a 335 style guitar on that song, just because I know I can hear some of the feedback happening. I think that's the one I used. I know live I've been using my new 335 on it just to kind of get similar tones.
One of the lyrics on it is it's getting harder to tell who's a friend of mine. Here's a difficult question for you. Did that did,
Sure.
did that lyric come from personal experience, or did it just seem to fit the song?
Absolutely. I mean, that song, Anders and I wrote it together. It's about, we both have a lot of experience touring, and there's a sensation that can occur, and it's sort of this ungrounding thing, like it's a disconnection from the things that keep your feet on the ground, like when you're constantly in motion, sometimes life can be like a whirlwind. I mean, yeah, that's a personal lyric, but I think we can all relate to, I think everybody can kind of relate to that. The older you get, it is kind of tougher to know who really has your back and who
Yeah.
doesn't.
Hmm.
I can't recall if Anders or I wrote that particular lyric, but I know that it definitely resonates with me, in that way. So yeah.
I know that you play a lot of your songs on in the studio, and you imagine how they might play out live. I think that's an
Hmm.
important thing for you. Um, does the sort of Mississippi blues of R.L. Burnside, are those type of songs more fun for you to play live?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because like, there's just an energy, and there's a hypnotic quality to it that you can really, it's all about dynamics for me, and I'm obsessed with dynamics. I want to take it down to a whisper, and then I want to somehow build it up into the biggest thing that we can build it into, and then, you know, smash it back down to earth. That's the fun part about music, playing guitar, all of that. The dynamic shifts for me. And that North Mississippi music, there's just something so hypnotic about the drum grooves and the guitar and how they, the interplay between the two. It's just something I've always really connected with and have had like a long-term admiration for that style. So
On the tracks, Don't Say It and Off in the Blue, they have a very different mood,
yeah,
which I have to say I really loved as well. Do you have to do anything special to get into the headspace to write those sorts of songs?
yeah. I mean, I love a ballad. I write a lot of ballads, and those songs are definitely, it's about heartache. It's about relationships. And I think you just have to channel your own experiences. When you're co-writing on songs like that, you're channeling your own experiences, but you're also trying to convey them in a way that's universally understood. I think sometimes when I'm talking about things that are very specific and, you know, uh, you have a tendency to speak your own language that, nobody else can relate to. So I love co-writing in that way because it's like bouncing these really personal things off of another person, and see what resonates, see what tells a story. Is this going to connect with others? It's like that for any song, but especially the heartbreak songs, and the things that feel very personal. You just want to make sure that you're understood, so that other people can relate to it too. But yeah, those two are definitely, um you know there are songs that are more difficult to write because of the emotional component to it. But I think that it's like a catharsis at the end of it. When you write something that's like very, like, that feels personal to you and is hard for you to write, it's at the end, it's kind of like, wow, I made something out of that bad experience I had. Like, now I have a nice song. It's definitely it's a better feeling than not writing it. So
Because of that
yeah.
heart element and because of the you pushing yourself to vocally, is it fair to say that you've invested more emotionally in this album than any previous one?
Um, I invest everything I have into every record. It's honestly, it's about, I feel like, we talk about getting comfortable in the studio, right? And learning how to sing in the studio and finding my voice in the studio. Part of where I'm at on this record is just years of experience and understanding how to do the thing that I want to do. Now I've got a little better idea of how to get from point A to point B. And I definitely really went for it on this record. And Bobby pushed me. He was very frank when he thought, like, I could do better on a vocal take. And so, there was a couple times where he'd pull me into the room, he'd go, come listen to this. And he'd go, you hear what I'm talking about? Like, I know what you want. I know how to get there. Okay. All right. Sometimes you just need somebody to, like, really just tell you, like, you know what I mean? It's like anything, push you harder.
Yeah.
But I feel like I was already really close to some of these, like, emotional things I needed to, achieve here. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it's just years and years of experience at this point.
On the song "I'm Done Running," you sing, "I'm turning into someone that I've never known. No, I'm changing. Watch me go." And in some
Yeah.
ways, I feel that kind of encapsulates your feeling about the whole album in some ways.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like and so that song I actually wrote a few years ago with Kate Perlman and Jim McCormick, and I pitched it for the faster record, but it just didn't really fit with that time period, that what we were doing. But I always thought that was a great song. So when I brought it to Bobby this time around, he's like, "Man, this song is this goes somewhere," and I'm like, "I know, I think it's." So when I wrote it a few years ago with those two other writers, I remember it was during lockdown. I think everybody was feeling the heaviness of all that. And now it has a little bit of a different meaning for me. It's almost like a dare. It's like, I know that life is gonna keep throwing stuff at me, but watch me go. I'm gonna deal with I'm gonna face it down anyway. So I don't write many empowering songs, but that one definitely is kind of a anthematic, you know.
Sure. Last time we talked, we talked about you playing with Buddy Guy and Eric Gales, and I know since then you have opened for the Rolling Stones. Um,
Yeah.
would you mind sharing us an anecdote from that time?
So we did it twice. And I only have my friend Quint Davis to thank. He is the leader of Jazz Fest. He puts on Jazz Fest every year. And he called me back in 2019, I believe, or 2020, and said he wanted us to open for the Stones back then, but unfortunately it couldn't happen because the band had to cancel. Things got pushed down the road. I thought it would never happen. I was just like, oh, it's just one of those too good to be true moments. So when he called me last year and said, hey, it's on and we want you to come back and play on that stage that day, I thought, no way, and then it happened. And Jazz Fest is always such a whirlwind anyway, but to put the Stones on, that's like just the most insane cherry on top. But he did, Quint kept on their tour publicist, and he said, if you guys add any dates and you need an opener, like, you need to call Samantha because she really wants to do it. So they did. They added an extra date in the Ozarks, and I got the call. And thank you, Quint Davis, because that made my dreams come true. And twice in a year, actually. So it was an amazing experience. That's always been a band for me that every interview I've ever done, they go, who do you want to open for? And I ironically say the Stones, because, like, that's never going to happen, right? But it was a really special experience. Like, they're such a good band, and every song just hit after hit after hit. It's amazing to be in that company. So I feel grateful for the opportunity.
Did you cross with them backstage or not?
Well, it was the last show of their tour, so I think everybody was like they were pretty under lock and key. I did connect, with my friend Carl Denson and Steve Jordan and Bernard Fowler and you know Chanel is one of the singers in the band. She's amazing, Chanel Haynes. And but the main guys, Keith and them, they were under lock and key. But I did look at his guitars. I did take a peek.
You've mentioned the stress of not being able to keep in touch with loved ones when you're touring, especially on, I think, Sweet Southern Sounds, you talk about it. Do you think it's ever possible to find peace with that tension?
I mean, I think life is, we're all in the struggle together, right? I mean, you're constantly trying to balance things, and I don't think I've ever met one person who's fully at peace with anything. So I don't think that me having my, little hardships or anything um remarkable. Everybody has to work it out for themselves. But I feel like, it's about effort. I do my best to, you know, make make time when I can. And, it's just about staying in touch, keep, including people in your life, bringing them out to where you are if they're willing. And if they're not, try to go to them when you can. And, um, I feel more at peace with it as I go because I realize everybody deals with that. Everybody does.
Yes, yeah. Especially nowadays with all the technology and yeah,
It's easier than ever, right?
yeah.
But it's like I think that's a natural feeling, especially for a lot of people who travel for work and are gone a lot. You feel this uprooting feeling, and you're never as connected as you want to be. And there's a lot of guilt in that. At least it is for me. Maybe I have maybe I have more guilt than I should. I don't know.
Your tour is quite extensive. You're obviously touring America and Europe. Are fans in other parts of the world likely to get to see you as well?
I hope so. Yeah, I really want to expand as much as possible. It's very important to me to get to our fans. I really want to go to Brazil. I've never been there. We just started doing Australia with some consistency, and it's been really wonderful to get to connect with people in that part of the world. So I'd love to go to Japan. I'd love to go. We went to India for the first time last year, and that was just incredible. A place I'd never been, and we connected with so many music lovers out there and fans, and it just was great to get to go and you know go to people that have never seen you before and put on a show. And I love playing in the US. I love playing in Europe and the UK, but I wouldn't mind adding in one new territory a year. If I could have it my way, I'd be adding one new uncharted place for us every year. So
My last question, Samantha, is I've noticed that you're playing with Kingfish Ingram in July the 12th. And I'm
yeah,
wondering what fans can expect from that gig.
I think we're gonna start a fire. Kingfish is amazing. He's such an exceptional guitar player and upholding the tradition of the blues. I'm really excited to be performing with him. He's I can't he's not a young up and comer because he's doing it like people called me that. I just he's just got such a spirit and an energy, and fans adore him. And I'm excited that we get to go and play some music for people and give them a show.
Thanks so much for speaking with us today. Best of luck with the album promotion and the tour.
Thank you so much.
Take care, Samantha.
All
Bye-bye.
right, bye. Thanks.